Hello and welcome to another wonderful, wonderful happening. I have upscaled, as you can see, I have upscaled technology and I'm now using OBS platform. So please like and share these streams. You'll find them on YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Dailymotion, and Facebook. Today I have a wonderful, wonderful guest. This is, of course, the Inspirational Community Collaboration. It is about presenting people, finding those brilliant, inspirational people and helping them to translate and bring to the forefront their wisdom for you, their essence, their service, their devotion, which is really what it's all about, service and devotion. Fundamentally, that is what makes joy. That is what makes happiness. Everything else is bullshit. Okay, maybe not. But anyway, today we have Kristin and Randall Brooks. Their Bhakti House Band is in the house. Woo woo woo! Bhakti House Band. It should be as simple as this. Simple. Hello.
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 You are on. You are live. I am with you.
We're on.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so good to see your face.
So nice to see you both. How are you? What's happening? Tell us about your world and yourself and your beingness.
Yes. You know, it's just expanding at rapid rates. It's amazing. It's funny because, you know, whenever life seems to come into a crisis, it's like that next level of waking up occurs.
Right.
It reminds me of Gurji used to say, you know, pray for more problems.
Right.
And I used to be like, what? No. But it's, you know, it's because, you know, it's so easy to become dull. So things have been really expanding. It's like a whole new level of our dharma has been activated within our being. And yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. It really has. This has been a very, very powerful quarantine time.
What do you think it is, Kristin? First, you know, I want to give a space to, you know, how we met. We met at through Moses at Bhakti Fest Midwest, and you guys rocked up with a hope of finding some place to pitch and to play and stuff. And I think you were billed to play some music, but not to have a stand. And somehow you magicked one of the main stage vendors to just not turn up. And so I had this big gap next to the stage. It was like right at the stage in Midwest in Madison. And I remember I was talking about it and Moses was like, what do you think? Can you sort these guys out? They're really cool.
I forgot about all that.
Yeah, that's where we first met. And
yeah, no, I remember meeting you and I forgot the whole booth thing.
Yeah.
I remember Moses is like, you need to set up here. And I was like, this is where I'm supposed to sit up. Yeah. And I don't remember all the details.
I don't remember if it was an actual space.
No, it was an actual space. It was a prime space. It was one of the vendors hadn't turned up, and literally I just it was there. It was an empty gap, and anyone who knows me knows I hate empty spaces where there should be something. I'm all for empty spaces on purpose. But when there's an empty space that's supposed to be full, that's when we've got problems. So anyway, I filled it with you guys and we made a deal and you said you'd giving some of your income to charity, which was great, and blah, blah, blah. And then I remember Sridhar, who was on last week, he came by and he goes, Mark, come here. Who the hell are these guys? And I said, don't worry, Sri, they're good people. Go and talk to them. And find out. And he went and spoke to you, and he came back and said, "Yeah, it's all right. Good decision. Good decision."
You know what's so funny, Mark?
Yeah.
Is that we didn't even know that we were playing at Midwest.
Right.
Until like a week before, we thought it had been too late. There wasn't any space for us. There wasn't a space for us to play because we'd gotten our stuff in too late and talked to you too late. And so, you know, we thought that we were just going out to Bhakti Fest West in California. We had no idea, and we had been working on the bus, slowly getting it done. And then we get an email saying, okay, here's your confirmed spot. And we were like, what?
Because you came in the big bus, right?
Together in like a week.
You came in the big school bus.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The Bhakti bus.
The Bhakti bus. How's the Bhakti bus doing?
Well, it needs a little love and care right now. We're going to get it cleaned up for spring so that we can do a little broadcast from there, because I love it. That's like our little apartment out back.
Absolutely.
And but it needs the engine needs a little tender love and care, which we're probably going to get to in the next couple of weeks, because I'm ready. When all this is over, I'm ready to get on the road. Yeah. And see everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about, and one of the other experiences I had with you as the group was afterwards when we went to Moses's dad's house, and we went and sat with Jacqueline, and we were by the lakes, and you and I asked you about her name, the other singer.
Yes, Melissa.
Melissa. You two and Melissa, and I think maybe some of your kids and whatever were there, and we were just sat by the waterfront singing Kirtan. But what I really remember is the bugs. There were mosquito bugs everywhere, and I was like hiding under sheets, and you all were just in your devotion, just not even bothered by them singing. They were in your mouth and your eyes. You were just totally... I would say tuned out, but you weren't tuned out. You were tuned in.
Yes.
Can you maybe talk about some of that with relation to, your calling?
Yes. That was fun. I remember, we did the 108 Gayatri, and it was, and the bugs I've never had bugs like that before, but that's really what it is. It's like this outer world can become such a distraction. And, and yoga is that practice of turning inward and tuning in. And we call it the internet.
Right.
As opposed to the internet, it's the internet, and going to that deep, soul, heart of the soul right there, and tuning into that. And then, it's like the rest just kind of fades away. It's like you no longer you feel the suffering of being bit by bugs.
Right.
Or distracted.
I felt it later.
Yes. I remember we just took our scarves and we just put them over us.
Right.
And it was a practice.
It was Melissa. I was so like I was just looking through my muslin, looking through, and she was just there, and there was bugs everywhere, and it was just nothing. It was just singing. So look, what type of music do you sing, or do you perform? Do you pray?
It's definitely an East meets West, and we do some kirtan, some call and response. We do some ancient mantra. We weave in some Rumi, Kabir, and but really our intention is just to draw people into the heart, to use these ancient practices and to draw people into the heart, and then to express our being to the best of our ability through this human form, this human mind. So that's really our intention. It's just drawing people in to connect to the heart, and bhakti is powerfully committed devotion to the truth of who you are, and so to anyone using sound, nada. It's like we call it Nada Bhakti.
Yeah. Using
a sacred sound and these ancient traditions to draw ourselves into that deeper relationship with the truth of who we are.
Lovely.
It's like a love affair.
How did you get into this?
I don't know if we have time to talk about
that. Look, what I love about you two in particular and the Bhakti House Band is that it looks from the outside so unlike a devotional music group. Like if I was to see you two trotting down the street, I'd think, Hell's Angels, Texas Hell's Angels, big skinhead with a big beard, and and then there's Randall, and so that's one of the things I love so much is that smashing of expectations that you had in me, and identifying my own biases, subject biases, but smashing the ideas of what is real and what's not, and kind of unifying the opposites.
Well, I think that part of that is it's from the time we met in a space where we were wanting to face the dogma and begin to recognize the difference between the voice of dogma, the voice of the ego, and the voice of the heart.
Mm.
And that's began. I mean, we were, mostly in the Christian tradition, and the early years of our music, we were constantly being thrown out of. We would go perform somewhere, and there were more of a mythological view of the Bible. When I say mythological, I don't mean like false, but that that essence of
Right.
our humanity and our divinity.
Archetypal.
Yeah, archetypal.
Right.
It's like if something's living, then it has to be relevant to me. And so, like, we were seeing a deeper way of looking at the Bible. We were into the Greek and into the Hebrew.
Mm.
And so we would go and we would share. Randall would sing these songs and just even songs addressing dogma. And in the moment, people were feeling it and they were loving it. But then I remember this one church. We were at this one festival, and they went back and they watched and listened to what we said, and they were like, "Wait a minute, what are they saying? Like, this is blasphemy."
Right.
And so that's been kind of our role, is to break out of dogma and to encourage anyone around us to do the same, because what does the relationship with the truth of who we are really look like?
Right.
Is it going to look like people in India? I mean, it could, but I don't think we're not here to recreate India over here from these ancient traditions.
Right.
We're here to take the essence of the traditions and then express it through the heart, so that it's a living essence, not a formula. That the mind wants a formula, the ego wants a formula, and we're here to help people break out of that formula. That's why we don't really rehearse. And like any morning, any of our Bhakti House cafes that we do in the morning, we don't plan. Like, maybe it's like, I think maybe we should do this chant. It's very we try to be as spontaneous as we can, and keep some planning. But I don't know. It's and I think it's our authentic self is ever expressing and renewing. By the time things get to the manifest realm, it's already history. So
Right.
if we're so caught up in what's happening and what's manifest out here, it's like we get kind of caught up in the past, and we're not truly standing in the presence of the Almighty Divine that's wanting to express through our hearts.
And that authenticity, that too much planning leads to inauthenticity.
Right.
It's like over planning.
It reminds me of
Planning's good, but just finding a
balance,
that sweet spot.
It reminds me of something Jacob Lieberman said to me once, that remembering is for liars.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah,
Please,
I mean,
write that down.
it took me a while to get it, but eventually there's some element of truth to that. What is it that is so special about this music in comparison to pop or rock or rap or I mean, it's kirtan, right? Would you class it as kirtan?
Yeah, mostly kirtan, mostly mantra.
Okay, but devotional music.
Yeah, devotional music.
Yeah.
Why isn't all music devotional?
Well, and I think okay, well, we're opening up a can of worms here.
Right.
I would say all music's devotional music, but it's learning to have that discrimination to know what is it that you're devoted to.
Right.
And this is about being consciously devoted to the truth of who you are, that deeper essence, that eternal nature. And all other music, it's fine. I mean, I'm not opposed to other music. It's fine, and it may help us to process places that we're stuck.
Yeah.
I think that it's a journey, and we're all living this amazing epic poem, and we have to know where we are in our epic poem. And I have to look back at all the music that brought us to right here, right now. Saying, with Randall, and he had his history in the hood.
Yeah, that's part of it.
So you have had it. You have
the baby out with the bathwater. It's like with the Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutra is a sutra. It's about what's threading through all of it and connecting all of it together. And you have to know what is it that you're carrying forth, and what is it that you're leaving behind.
Right.
Because you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
You want to you draw from it. It's like coming to that place of being in such deep gratitude of every experience in your life, good, bad, ugly, and being able to draw from it like an ingredient in this great cosmic pie.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think what, part of that is talking about conscious devotion. It's like from our past, this new album is called Roots to Revolutions.
Yeah.
And it started out as Roots because we thought we'd go back to our musical roots and bring them all forward into, including gospel, and I had rap, back in my day, and there are elements of that experience with gospel, with being in the church and being in the rap scene, that are were negative for me both places, church and that. And I grew up as a preacher's kid, so there's
Right.
from the beginning, hellfire and brimstone.
In the beginning, yes.
What's that? Yeah. So, so anyway, we tend to throw it all out at first. You're like, you get angry and
like, this is bad.
This is wrong, and you throw everything out. You throw the Bible out. I threw rap out and didn't want it to have anything to do with it. And then realizing through this journey that there are those things, like Kristin said, that you thread through your life. What is it? We need to be able to discriminate. What do we carry forward and what do we leave behind? We don't throw it all out. And I think this album and what we're about is about integration, bringing it all together to make something beautiful out of what appeared to be, something that wasn't. So.
Right. Well, I mean, that is a nice question with regards to the first point that you made, which is about the crisis allows for the waking up. And then the integration. What part of the crisis, what do we do with the crisis? Like, as people who dedicate themselves to a devotional practice, and that is your, that's your livelihood, that's your chosen truth of who you are. Your devotional practice. As people from that perspective, what do you do when crisis hits like this?
To me, it's when you sink deeper. It's that opportunity to sink deeper into the heart, to spend more time in meditation and contemplation, more time just it's almost like waking up to a whole new level of compassion and becoming aware of where you lack compassion. And because that's one thing, if you're growing in compassion, you're growing in awareness. So there's this crisis. The crisis, it's like putting pressure on something. It's going to bring all of those hidden patterns that we've developed over our lives up, and both as individuals and collectively as well. And so there's a lot of times we become very we just kind of fall asleep. When things are going easy, we tend to become dull and we fall asleep and we take things for granted. It's kind of like this. It's like you don't really have a context to appreciate life except by death.
Right.
Without, that's what gives us a context and an appreciation and gratitude for, a temporary experience of expressing the eternal in form. It's a beautiful and powerful thing. It's like if we were just living in this body forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, it's like you kind of become dull. It becomes old hat. And so this is a time where we begin to look at what we do have, and there's a series of, every week has been different. I've been, just feeling that collective consciousness. And I told Randall, I said, this is the week that people are going to start running out. The mind's going to start running out of all of its distractions.
Right.
And the rubber's going to hit the road. And this is really a time to sit back and watch those patterns rise, to meet them with deep compassion, without judgment. And when we find ourselves judging outside of ourselves, remembering Sutra 221, the seen is for the seer alone. It's Patanjali. What we're seeing here is for us alone. It's for our benefit, for our growth, for our growth, for our evolution. And so in this crisis, it's like, don't act if it's from a place of intense emotional charge, then you probably want to. We have a rule in our house: when that intense emotional charge comes up, we step back from the phone, or step back from the TV, or
Right.
step back from a conversation, because that's usually the presence of a samskara coming up.
Tell us about that. Tell us
And
about Sam's.
that
Tell us about.
pattern revealing itself, and we can choose to either feed that pattern
Right.
and allow it to grow, or we can remove our attention and just watch, and it'll weaken. And every time that pattern comes up, from if we just step back, it'll weaken, and then we begin to see more clearly. It's not so
Entangled. Yeah, entangled. So at first, when you started to notice these, because the hardest thing to do is to notice shit when it's happening, like
right.
I'm fucking furious. Oh, hold on, I'm furious. I'll just step back into the stillness. Okay. Like at first, did you like use little bells? Because I was thinking about little, like people have safe words in BDSM. I was wondering if we could have conscious words or conscious sounds like that you do to your partner when you see that they're lost inside the emotion. Did you do anything like that? Like, how did you help each other train to become aware?
We've kind of been through the fire on all this kind of stuff. It's almost like this whole COVID thing we've been training for our whole lives.
Well, you know what? I actually use. I have this "Raise Your Words" bracelet that we made.
Yeah.
Raise your words.
I raise that up, and say, "All right,
like,
hey, raise our words."
Raise your words. It's what we're using with some of the kids. I think that just practice going through difficult times. I mean, that's how it's. That's really how it comes together. For my whole life, I struggled with anxiety and depression. My whole life, and when I was 20 years old, I had a major breakdown. I was in a abusive relationship with a narcissistic man, just repeating these patterns over and over again. Trying to deal with, my perceived abandonment of my father, and all this stuff. And so one of the tools that I learned back then was to stop and back up and figure out where did it split off, and where was the last place I knew I had a choice.
That's interesting. I like that. So you sort of you backtrack to the last time. It's almost like, where did I last put my keys? Yeah.
Yes. When was the last time I knew I had it?
Yes.
It's like, when was the last time I knew I had peace? And like, it's like recapitulation. It's a powerful practice, and we practice it after every dream night and at the end of every day. To recapitulate, because when you recapitulate, when you step back and you walk through it, then you start to notice patterns, and so when you figure out, okay, this is where I got off. Then you remember, if I, and then once you figure out where you got off, you step back again. Well, what were the steps leading up to that losing it? And just practice and crisis. I mean, probably the first major crisis after we got married was when Finn almost died.
Finn's our youngest.
He's our youngest. He's 13 and a half now. And that was really when we were delving really deeply into mantra then, and we were chanting, and we're like, this mantra is supposed to bring us the desires of our heart.
Right.
And then all this stuff started happening. I had a nonprofit cheerleading organization, and the moms were like crazy psycho, and
cheerleader mums. Who could have predicted that?
It was just nuts. But I ended up, I was pregnant, and I ended up on bed rest because I was having issues with my pregnancy, and it really, it's like just caused all these problems. But in hindsight, realizing that the deepest desires of our heart is to know, to commune with, and to express that beautiful relationship with the truth of who we are. That's the deepest, and whatever it takes. It took me almost losing a child. I mean, that's how it was. That was the first lesson in surrender. When they tell you your child is dying, come up here now, and you're like, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You feel hopeless and helpless, and I remember I had to make a decision. We were driving in the hospital, and there was this amazing sunrise, purples, pinks, oranges. It's like forever in my mind. I can remember it. And I had to make a decision. I can either get wrapped up in the visions of baby funerals and baby coffins and, oh my God, how am I going to live the rest of my life without my son? Or I could choose to be present as possible with him for the short time that I had left, you know. And I thought, I need to be there for him. That's what he deserves.
Right.
And in that, there was this sudden surge of bliss that came in that surrender. And I felt in my being, you know, if he chooses to leave the body, there's nothing that can separate us, you know, nothing. I mean, like it was like this revelation. It wasn't like I tried to feel this way. It was just, it was almost like in that choosing to be present, that truth came up through the heart to say, if he chooses to go, it's for your highest good.
Right.
You know, and it's going to be better for you and for the world and for him. And standing in that and releasing all resistance to it. I mean, it was crazy. I remember sitting there going, how can I be feeling bliss when I'm going to say goodbye to my son? You know, it was very...
And so that was part of the training.
Yeah, that was a huge part of the training.
For this. There were others
And
since then, but
tell us about, you know, you mentioned this term samskara. Tell us about what that is.
So samskaras, there are those patterns of energy in our being, that in our consciousness, that can be positive or negative, you know, either one. But you know, when we have a samskara, especially, and you know, what happens is during a trauma, we create some kind of pattern so that we can survive, and it's beneficial at the time. It keeps us alive. The problem is that the mind loves to put everything in a box. So the mind's like, okay, when anything that feels like this happens, this is the pattern that needs to come up and save you.
Right.
You know, and so that it strengthens. I mean, I still have them. There's one around a car wreck. I died in a car wreck when I was 18, and you know, they had to revive me, and it was all, you know, it was pretty intense. But like every time Randall slows down suddenly in a car, you know, I still find myself going, you know, and I became very aware of it. Like I might not even know what he's doing. I might be on my phone, but like there's this automatic pattern in my breath that I'm like, wow, it's still there, you know. And so I just have to stop and put my hand over my heart and, you know, just give myself love. And I think it's, you know, it's really more about, you know, when we see one standing there in compassion, seeing these patterns, it's like a fractured part of our inner child that wants to be heard, that wants to be loved, that wants to be taken care of. And I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's a difficult question. Some philosophers have been arguing over it for eons, you know, and now in the modern world, it's even more difficult. But the fractured part of self, because it does seem like there's an integration of everything here. That's the way to evolve. That's the way to, to have union. I mean, yoga is the word union, which I changed. You've had that the type of music you do is the yoga of sacred sound.
Found in conscious devotion.
Right. Found in conscious devotion. I put that it's the union with sacred sound found in devotion.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's what yoga means. It's the union, right? So it seems like people who are resisting all their negative sides, their fractured parts, are the ones who are finding it most difficult at this time.
Very true. Very true. And I know, I mean, it happens. I mean, it's like, we don't like it. We want to resist what we think is bad and scary and dark. And, ooh, what if I delve into myself and I find out I'm a bad person? Or, you know, we're terrified of the unknown. Yeah. And, but that's where the magic happens. And one of the things that I started doing to help with my anxiety many years ago was our first Nada yoga teacher 25 years ago. He gave us a meditation on the Anahata Nada, which is the unstruck song of the heart. It's that it manifests as a ringing or a buzzing in the ears. A lot of people will call it tinnitus. That's usually your inner voice screaming out at you.
Yeah.
There's
Maybe turn that lower.
I need to quiet. Yes, be quiet.
Ching! There's money. Cha-ching!
I know. How do I get this off? Okay, here we go.
There we
now
go.
we won't be bothered. Okay, good. But it's what I started doing was when he would have us meditate on the sound, and that's all we did. And at the time, we were like, okay, meditate on the Nadam, and or the sound of silence,
right.
and it was great. We did it, but it took 13 years of practice before I was like, oh my God, this is the most sacred meditation ever. Like, I had to write to him and apologize for my ignorance and my lack of reverence out of ignorance. And we had this beautiful conversation. And so one of the things that I used was I would imagine this sound, this nadam. I would turn my attention to that sound within. And I would imagine it as a very compassionate being, sitting in a chair. It could be God or Jesus or Buddha or any of the myriad of different gods and goddesses, or it might be a grandmother or a mother figure. And so I would bring this child, like anxiety became a child.
Right.
And I would take anxiety by the hand, because you're not going to deny a child, and shut a child out.
Right.
And so I would take, anxiety by the hand, and I would imagine it as a child, and I would set it in the lap of this compassionate being and just surrender it, and as many times as it took. And typically within 5 minutes of practicing this, the anxiety would dissipate completely.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely, we've talked about on the show the notion of archetypes and embodying the different archetypes, the gods, the goddesses, the deities, whatever you need, to allow your emotions a kind of separation from self, so that they can be expressed. They can be like, yes, Shiva is angry now. It's like, okay. And that way gives you this ability, a space, actually, funnily enough, space between the emotion and you, so that there's a thing. But what you were doing there was even more interesting, because you were bringing in a third dimension. And as I say, the smallest number is 3, because you've got, you've got the not you, and then you've got the you, not you interaction. So the smallest number is 3, and what you're doing there with the benevolent being is like you're creating the triad, the trinity inside yourself there. And
that's lovely, Mark. That's lovely.
And I like the way you put it. Patty was talking about the loving the magic of uncertainty.
Oh, yes.
Do you think that's powerful? The uncertainty. Do you think there's a surrender that happens inside that?
Absolutely. I mean, and the more that you practice it, it's almost life becomes exhilarating. It's like suddenly your dharma begins to wake up. See, when you look at the Ramayana, which is our favorite, and Rama, here he's about to inherit his father's kingdom, right? But Joseph Campbell always tells us you have to face the father representing our conditioning from our parents, our society, teachers, culture, whatever. And so he wasn't meant to inherit his father's kingdom. He had to be exiled into the forest, and the forest represents the unknown. It represents uncertainty. It's where we have to go and learn how to discriminate between the voice of the ego and the voice of the heart, and, in doing so, it's like you build this grit, this commitment, and this belief that, yes, the universe always has our back. Always. It's like, if the universe always has our back, then how does that frame this COVID crisis? If the universe always has our back, how is this illness that's come on, how is that serving me? It's like this trust that there's something bigger beyond our individual perspective that is at work. And then you are forced to look and to find what it is, the ways that it's serving you, and find the gifts and the beauty, and fall into that place of deep gratitude. I mean, there's this exhilaration of our dharma. Our dharma being that, like reaching our highest potential. Otherwise we get dull. We're not expanding. The universe is always expanding, and if we're not expanding with it, it becomes very dull.
So there's always going to be unknown in expansion. I mean, you can't expand without unknown.
Beautiful. Well, are you set up to sing any music?
Sure.
What do you fancy?
Always.
What's your prayer for us?
Well, I know really a powerful one, is always, the Ramayana. Are you thinking something?
No, I don't know what she's going to say. But
I don't know what I'm going to say.
That is the uncertainty. I will let you know.
I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
I will let you know that I'm not biasing the selection.
Known every day of our marriage.
I don't want to bias the selection, but when you sent me Lord of the Dance, it was just on repeat constantly. On repeat constantly.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Ooh, have we played that in a while? Do you remember it?
Oh yeah, I can play it.
No, but I didn't mean it to be a request. Play whatever's strong in your heart.
And there won't be any drums to it, but so it'll be more mellow than normal probably. Yeah. It doesn't matter. What do you think?
Yeah, let's see.
What do you want to do? Are we influenced by Mark?
No, don't be influenced by me.
Well, you know what? I mean, we've got a little time. We might have time to do.
You might have time to do two. You've got about 20 minutes.
Okay. You want to? Why don't we start with Rama and Sita? Just because I love the Ramayana, and it's really so much of what we're all going through, and it's the story of how we come to hear the voice of our heart, the voice of our dharma, that blueprint for reaching our highest potential in human form, and in that expression of the eternal through human form, and how he has to face Ravana representing our ego and that unsubmitted dogma within us that's really wants to stay stagnant. And I don't know, to me it's good. So in this, we love to take the archetypes to a whole new level. It's like, seriously, it's one of those things that when you jump into the Ramayana, there's always a deeper message, and it's like everybody's questions during this last 42 days of doing our morning sessions has brought even more about. And so I don't know, I think getting more deeply in touch with our dharma, beginning with that, and hearing the voice of our heart. Good. So it goes Ram. Oh yeah, let's do Tempera. I'll try Tempera.
Rama's prayer, Sita's prayer.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So it goes like this. It's a call and response. So sing along. Ram, Ram, Sita, Ram.
So Mark, you may need to turn your mic off because it'll cut. And we found that cuts in and out on the music.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Maybe during it.
Yeah.
He probably knows better.
Okay. Well, I know. Sorry.
How's that? Can you hear me?
About that.
All right.
Oh, okay. I'm going to cut off.
Ram, Ram, Sita, Ram, Bolo, Bolo, Hanuman.
Ram, Ram, Sita, Ram, Bolo, Bolo, Hanuman.
Jai, Jai, Sita, Ram, Jai, Jai, Hanuman.
Jai, Jai, Sita, Ram, Jai, Jai, Hanuman. So here we are calling forth and evoking our dharma, Rama representing our dharma, and Sita representing that our capacity and the expression, birthing our dharma into the world. And in the story, they become separated by Ravana, who represents that unsubmitted part of our ego. And Hanuman is the great monkey king, monkey god, who comes in. He represents devotion and bringing them together. So one of the things that drew us into Ramayana was when Rama and Sita came back to claim their kingdom after everything was done, and they defeated Ravana. Rama was so blown away by Hanuman's devotion, and so he asked him. He says, "Who are you?" And Hanuman, this is it. This is the line. He says, when I forget who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you. And so to me, this is like a remedy for anything. When I'm feeling separated, because that's, ego, that's that focusing on that separate part. And with, like even Lanka means island, it's separate from the whole. And Hanuman had to build that bridge to get over to Lanka. That devotion is what builds the bridge. So when we're feeling separate, we can just serve, find a way to serve. And that reunites Rama and Sita, our dharma, with our ability and capacity to carry that out. So let's do it. Keeping that in mind.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
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 Ram Ram
Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo
Bolo
Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo
Hanuman. Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Jai Jai Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Ram. Jai Jai Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Jai Jai Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Ram. Jai Jai Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo
Bolo Hanuman. Bolo Hanuman. Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman. Bolo Hanuman.
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo Bolo Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Jai Jai Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Ram. Jai Jai Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Jai Jai
Hanuman.
Jai Jai Sita Ram.
Jai Jai Hanuman.
Rama 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 Rama
Ram 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 ram.
Om Shri Rama Sharanam Om Ram Ramaya Namah Om Shri Rama Sharanam Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namah Om Shri Rama Sharanam Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namah Om Shri Sita Ramachandra Om Shri Sita Ramachandra Yam Ramba Ram 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 Ram
Ram ram ram.
Bolo bolo Hanuman Ram Ram Sita Ram 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 Bolo bolo Hanuman
Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo bolo Hanuman Ram Ram Sita Ram Bolo bolo Hanuman Ram You know, it's one of my favourite bits, and I wanted it to be longer, but we're kind of going live. But it's the silence after. There's something special that happens in that silence. But as I said, we're going live, so I didn't want to leave it too long. That was beautiful. I noticed how you almost went into Lord of the Dance just at the end there. Huh? Yeah, I hear.
You know, it's when you're that I'll never forget the first time for me when in the middle of the chanting when suddenly, you know, I fell into the samadhi where I'm present and I'm like, who's chanting? Who's chanting? You know, it's such an amazing place of comfort when we realize that, you know, this little individual self is just a very small part of something so beautiful and so benevolent and so compassionate. And in that space of chanting, you just get to relax into it. So, I love it.
What happens inside inside the witnessing that is the. I mean, you know, the thing with the mantras is that you're not having to remember like a complex set of physical meanings to words, like I went down to the park and it's like you're not telling the story. What are you doing if you're not telling the story?
You're feeling the story.
Yeah.
Say again.
The meaning.
The meaning. I mean, Sanskrit, itself, it means perfection, as opposed to the ego's version of perfectionism. And so it's drawing us to that beautiful, perfect, eternal essence that we are. It's, most languages in the world, modern languages, they're labeling languages. And Sanskrit, draws us in to feel the essence. That's why there's really no direct English translation of any Sanskrit word, because it literally, it's eternal and it's infinite.
Yeah.
And so it will continue to reveal layer upon layer upon layer of its essence. And so that's powerful.
Yeah, I just had an hour conversation with Jeffrey Armstrong this morning, called me up to tell me about Sanskrit and that it's the origin of all languages. And he even told me the origin of word dharma, which of course I've forgotten. I mean, it's Sanskrit, but what the meanings were. It was basically about truth, dedication to truth.
Yeah, it's bhakti. It's powerfully committed devotion to the truth of who you are, the truth of all things.
Yeah, and in fact,
it's like, we look outside and we see this tree and we say, oh, that's a tree. We're like observing and we're putting a label on it. But when we sit here and we say the word vriksha, and you gaze upon the tree, you can feel the essence and that connection with it. It's like dropping all of the form and just feeling what's left.
Interesting. I mean, as the original language, as most, except maybe the Asian languages, but the original language for all the European, most of the European languages.
Yeah, it's definitely a mother language.
Yeah. It's almost
not the oldest language, but yet it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like, when you kill the head vampire and drink the head vampire's blood, you get all the powers of the subsequent vampires below them.
Yes, yeah. I've never thought of it that way.
No, it's just something that came to me from the movie Underworld. I don't know why, but
I love it. I love the movies and how they can reveal all of this divine information.
Right.
It's awesome.
Exactly. So we're
superheroes. So I get it.
So we're coming exactly the normal superheroes. So we're coming towards the end of the show. Tell us about what you're doing at the moment. What's going on in your lives? Where can people find you? Are you doing? Yes. You're doing every morning. You do before I wake up. Even what the hell's that?
Every morning. Yeah, if you, on our Bhakti House Band Facebook page and on Instagram, but Bhakti House Band, the Facebook page is better because we have like
we have the mic and
we have
all
the little
that.
mic.
Right.
Instagram, literally, we just rubber band Randall's phone around the tripod for Instagram. It's very low.
This was all something we decided to do right at the beginning of the quarantine. Just like you, Mark, I guess, something we wanted to do, but we didn't have all the equipment. And it was like, well, we'll get the equipment and then we'll start. We're just like, okay, you know what? We need this right now. And let's put a rubber band, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
To get going,
It's like start using those ingredients in your environment to make this great cosmic pie.
Right.
And so we're there. Bhakti House Cafe. It's every morning at 9 a.m. Central. So I guess for Pacific, that's 2 hours, 7 a.m. Central. For Eastern, it's 10 a.m. Eastern.
Right.
And it's really for 10 years we've wanted to do this. Just where we come with either a cup of coffee. I usually have a cup of tea, or your water, or your juice, or whatever it is you want to bring. And we just sit and we chat and we have high level conversation, much like what we're doing here, and share. We'll share what's on our hearts, and then we'll sing a chant, and then we close with a song called "Raise Your Words," and it's our big focus for 2020, the Raise Your Words initiative. And originally, the plan was we were taking it into the schools around Texas, into the public schools, to help with the bullying. And the kids have been learning the Sanskrit mantra. It's been incredible. I couldn't believe we had so many amazing superintendents and principals and teachers that were so gung-ho for this. And so we had this big plan in April to go down and to film with all these kids. And then this happened. And so we were like, well, okay, we're feeling in our hearts this goes out to the children. And we're like, well, it goes to that inner child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's call into the inner child and just be kind, to treat one another with respect, to begin to look, instead of looking at people as enemies or friends, look all of it as the beloved. As Ram Dass says, we're all God in drag. Everyone is God in drag. And so, it's like if there's someone you're disagreeing with, how can we, extend prayers of efficiency and how the universe is using whatever's happening to wake us up and to bring us to a higher level of consciousness.
Amazing. It has been such a pleasure to have you on live, and
thankful to be here, Mark. It's been such an awesome journey. I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So hold on, so you've got 2 albums out?
No, we have 5 albums.
5?
Yeah, well, we have 2 meditation albums and then 3 music albums. So we have Nada Bhakti, which the one we just sang is from our first album, Nada Bhakti. It's the red album. Then we have Akasha, which was what was coming out when I met you guys.
Oh, yeah,
it has a picture of me as a little girl on the front.
Do you know my problem with Akasha is you had 2 sides to it. One was just the instrumental and one was not. I've lost my other non-instrumental side, so all I've got is the instrumental side.
I'll send you one. Send me your address.
All right. Well, I don't need a physical. I just download or something. Anyway.
I'll email it to you today.
Because I can only listen to you on Spotify now, otherwise.
Oh, yeah. We are on Spotify. Yeah. We never promote our Spotify. We're so terrible at that. But if you have Spotify, we're on Spotify. We have a website, Bhakti House Band. I would like to invite everyone to, the Raise Your Words Initiative. Go to our website. Click on the Raise Your Words Initiative link on there. And download the song or just listen to the song. Film yourself singing the chorus and send it to us.
Nice.
And we're creating a global community music video.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
More details there. And
that is excellent. And please remember to like and share this video, everyone. Thank you to my guests, Dearheart, Dr. Mr. Love, Kristin and Randall Brooks, the Bhakti House Band. Please do tune in, like, share this video, subscribe on YouTube. It's the first one going live onto YouTube. Handbrake and all that stuff. I don't know, other places. Anyway, every day we're doing these shows. So lots of love. Thank you. Like, share, all that stuff. You want to get in touch with me, Markabadi. As my father always tells me, I've got a book. It's called Book Evolve. bookevolve.com. Check it out. You can find me markabadi.com. Until then, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Thank you, OBS, for having an open source system. I will see you all tomorrow. Much love. Aloha.